Hey, what's up, bro? It's Gains.by Fenton here, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the engineering method to get visible abs to make this process a whole lot simpler. So in this video, I'm going to be having three topics. The first is going to be the protein first design philosophy. Then I'm going to talk about the repeat meal system. And finally, I'm going to give my no cooking solutions approach. So starting with the protein first design philosophy, the idea is to think like an engineer. It's like debugging code, having a formula that you know is going to work, establishing that formula that is going to give you the abs that you're looking for. Priority stack. Protein first, everything else is secondary variables. So anytime you approach your meals, the idea is you want to make sure that you have the adequate amount of protein and that you're following your caloric demands. What this means is you want to think about this simple algorithm, the 1 gram per pound rule. So body weight in pounds is going to equal your grams of protein that you take in a day. That's simple. Why is protein your primary function? There are three reasons why. One, the thermic effect. This essentially is the science behind when you consume protein. Anytime you take protein, 30% of that protein is going to be burned off just by digesting. It takes your body that much energy to digest the protein, making it the most return on investment macronutrient compared to carbs and fat. Muscle preservation. Obviously, the name of the game when you eat protein is going to build your muscle, which means it's going to keep your body more intact, and it makes it one of the most efficient macros to consume. Then the final and most overlooked part of protein that is super critical is that it gives you that satiety optimization. So it's going to keep you fuller than any other macronutrient. So it's very important that you consume. The next part is the engineering calculation, right? So as I mentioned, give you an example. If you weigh 200 pounds, then you're going to want to consume 200 grams of protein a day. So when you go to deciding about how to determine the amount of protein that you eat in a meal, it gets simple because you merely just divide the meals that you intend to consume that day by the amount of protein that you're going to eat daily. So if you have 4 meals that you plan to eat in a day and your target is 200 grams of protein, then that means that in each meal, you're going to eat 50 grams of protein. When you are going to determine your protein first meal construction, you follow this template. First, you choose your protein source. Then after the protein established, you add on your veggies. That will be for fiber and micros. So that's the second tier of importance. And then finally, you add on your minimum fats and carbs as needed to meet your caloric demands. Why does it work? Protein fills you up before the other macronutrients can interfere with you overeating. Going into the second point here that I have. So why should engineers embrace food repetition? This helps with cognitive load reduction. Essentially, decision fatigue is real and you want to automate your nutrition. Consistent results. You know what you put in, you get out. All right. Same input, you get your same output, and it's easier to implement and follow. Time optimization. You prep once and then you can eat multiple times. It makes it more efficient. You cook everything's set to go, and then when you're on the go and it's time to eat, you have it already set up and ready for you. All right. And then quality control. You get the perfect one meal and then you build upon it. You make it more diverse. I'm gonna break down now the 3 meal rotation system. First, you have your breakfast optimization. You're gonna have 3 options. You could have eggs plus egg whites and spinach as your option A. Option B, you could do something that like Greek yogurt, protein powder, and berries. And then option C, you can do your oatmeals plus protein powder plus nuts. So that could be 3 variants of what you would eat for breakfast. Going into lunch, if you want to standardize your lunch, you start first with your base. That could be something like a large salad with pre-cooked protein. Then you implement your variations. You change the protein source, your chicken, your turkey, your salmon, and then you add on dressing. And to keep it low cal and something that is flavorful, you do something like olive oil and vinegar. Vinegar gives you that flavor, and olive oil is a healthy fat. So when you meal prep, it's like code development. All right. So bam, Sunday batch processing, you do 2 hours of prep for the entire week. So all your prep is done in that 2-hour window, gives you all the time you need during the week when it's time to eat and you're not cooking. You adopt the container system, glass containers, portions, everything that you intend to eat. So everything's portioned out. It is not a guessing game, and you don't have to use that mental bandwidth every day throughout the day when it's time for you to eat. And then You have a version control, all right? You track what works and then you can adapt on that weekly. All right, going into the third section here, the no cooking solution. This is for the non-cooking engineer. So, reality check. If you assume 100K salary, that's about $52 an hour. A 2-hour meal prep is gonna cost you $104, not to include the actual groceries, which obviously would make it more. But if you do something like a weekly meal prep service, you can only expect to pay somewhere around $150 a month. So it kind of makes sense. You get your return on investment by meal prepping and you make it just completely simple. I prefer this option. This is the option I adapt. I used to use the previous methods, but this option I find to be the most efficient. The cost benefit analysis. Time saved is better than the money that you spend on delivery services. It's an engineering mindset. Automate what you can, but optimate what you must. Now I'll get into the meal prep delivery service. Here are some high-end options that are worth on investing. Trifecta is organic and macro counted. You have fresh and lean, paleo, keto options. They have clean ingredients, factor, chef prepared, 30 plus grams of protein per meal. Field meals, this is what I personally use. Heavy on protein, engineer approved portions. All right, let's talk about the service selection algorithm. It's gonna be a 3-step process. You're gonna check protein content, minimum 30 grams per meal. You're gonna verify calorie ranges that match your targets. And then the final step is that you're gonna test the delivery reliability in your area. You wanna make sure that whomever you choose, that they're reliable on delivery, that they don't lag, they're consistent before you lock in on that final decision. All right, so now getting to the engineering service setup, you want to have a subscription optimization. You order Sunday for all the food that you're going to consume that week. Meal distribution. A good way to handle this is you can order just for lunch and dinner, but then handle your breakfast. Breakfast is typically a lot easier to prepare, so that is just a system that you can follow. You want to have inventory management, so keep 2 to 3 meals back up in the freezer, and you want to have some kind of quality control. The food you get, test it, try it, and then at that point, it's something maybe you don't like, you can merely go back to the service and order the meals that you would prefer. Then you want to have some kind of emergency protocols. So that's going to handle any service disruptions. Always having a 3-day backup. Travel solutions. You want to research the areas to see if those services deliver in the new area that you're planning on going to. All right. So you want to have this system follow you and not just be a system that you can adopt when you're home. Finally, you want to look at late night hunger. When it comes to late night hunger, always have protein shakes available to keep you, satiated. Because again, protein being the one macronutrient that keeps you full. Cost justification framework. The time value calculation. 1 hour of meal prep is going to equal 1 billable hour of work. That's the mindset that you have to have when you implement this. This is what you have to think about when you make that decision. So stress reduction. This is going to remove decision fatigue from nutrition. Result optimization. It gives you consistent macros, predictable abs progress. So the consistent macros will equate to the prediction of the abs that you want. And you have to think of the ROI mindset. Invest in your body to have long-term career performance. All right, to summarize, you want to have a protein first approach whenever you implement your meal prep strategy so that you keep satiated. You want to have a system that repeats itself, that's easy to follow and structure and isn't too complicated where you don't end up following anyway. And then finally, there are other alternatives where you don't even have to meal prep. You can implement some kind of no cooking solution, which again, I feel to be the best method. All right, bro, that's it. That's my guide on how you can get visible abs from an engineering mindset.